Hi, my name is Noni Matigela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I want us to look at the police investigation and forensic disputes in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Now, what if the biggest battle in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial isn't about who pulled the trigger, but whether the police investigation itself can be trusted, which is one of the biggest issues that we have in South Africa currently. Those are one of the biggest issues that we have in South Africa currently, because if you look at what is happening at the Madlanga and the revelations and the July situation, we had issues because some of us were watching the Senzo Meyiwa case questioning a lot of things. Now, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi came out, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi came out and be saying a lot of things. And then after he said a lot of things and then things were put in the public domain and people were watching the case of, the Madlanga Commission, and they were now seeing things in a different light when it comes to police and their investigations. Well, I am at liberty to say we can question anything police related. Police are not people to be trusted, okay? We do have good police officers, but you can't just easily trust the police. That you cannot do. Now, when it comes to the Senzo Meyiwa case, from a contaminated crime scene and changing investigative theories to disputed forensic evidence and years of delays, the case has become as much a trial of the investigation as it is a trial of the accused. So today we are going to unpack the police investigation and the forensic disputes that have kept South Africa divided because Sana, Sana. All right. Now let's start with part one, which is the original crime scene. When Senzo Meyiwa was shot on the 26th of October 2014 at the Vosloorus home of Kelly Khumalo's mother, police were faced with what should have been a straightforward homicide investigation. According to the people inside the house, two armed intruders entered during what was described as a robbery. One allegedly armed and demanded a cell phone before a shot was fired. However, almost immediately questions emerged. Critics have argued that the crime scene was not ideally preserved. Numerous people moved around the house after the shooting. Items inside the house may have been handled before forensic processing. Several witnesses remained together before formal statements were taken. The state, on the other hand, maintains that despite these challenges, investigators collected sufficient evidence and continued building the case over several years. Secondly, the first investigation. The initial investigation focused heavily on the reported robbery. Police interviewed eyewitnesses, examined possible robbery suspects, collected forensic evidence, looked at cell phone records, investigated known criminals operating in this area. Despite extensive work, no prosecution followed during the early years. That prolonged period without arrest became one of the central criticisms of the investigation from South Africans to the police department. Thirdly, a new team takes over. Years later, the investigation shifted direction. The case was transferred to the National Cold Case Investigation Unit under Brigadier Bongani Gininda. This marked a major turning point. Instead of focusing only on the original robbery theory, investigators began examining whether the murder has been planned. Eventually, 5 accused were arrested. The state's current case relies on a combination of alleged confession evidence, cell phone records, witness testimony, and other circumstantial evidence. The defense argues that this represented a dramatic change in investigative direction and has challenged many aspects of how that evidence was gathered and interpreted. And let me tell you, when it comes to all of that investigation and the evidence and everything to the T is questionable. Everything to the T is questionable. After we listened to the Phala Matter issue, everything is questionable when police are involved. When we listen to General Mfazi's situation and murder plot twist, Everything is questionable where police are involved. So we do not trust Jack. Okay? We don't trust Jack. Number 4, the confession evidence. One of the most disputed areas concerns alleged confessions and admissions. The state contends that these statements link accused to the murder. The defense has argued that the statements were obtained improperly. Some accused were assaulted and coerced, and the confession should not be considered reliable. The court conducted a lengthy proceedings to determine the admissibility of certain confessions-related evidence. Because the reliability and legal admissibility of the confession evidence are central issues, the court's findings on these matters are significant to the case. Yes, Judge Rata accepted these so-called confessions because he needed to hear what's inside them. And we were curious, as much as we are not happy at the beginning. But right now, you are looking at it and you're like, actually, that was a very good move, Judge Rata Mokwatleng. That was a very good move, because we would have never known what's inside the dementia that is inside those so-called confessions. And then there is also cell phone evidence. Another major area of dispute involves cell phone analysis. The state represented expert evidence intended to show communication patterns and location data that it says support its case. The defense challenged aspects of this evidence, including interpretation of cell phone tower data, timing of calls, movement analysis, and whether the records establish the conclusions advanced by the prosecution. Experts from both sides have disagreed about what can reliably be inferred from cell phone records alone. Now, when it comes to cell phone evidence, when it comes to Pinky from Vodacom, she made sure that accused number 3 is not part of the circus. Because Pinky said, no, accused number 3 was nowhere near Vosloorus during from after 5 p.m. until 8:30 at night. He was not anywhere near Vosloorus. He was in Johannesburg Central. And that, my dear, is one of the things that are hurting Mr. Baloyi's case. Because how is he going to get out of that one? That cell phone evidence is clear. It's very clear. Number 6, the ballistics. Ballistic evidence has also been closely examined. Forensic experts discussed the firearm used, bullets, cartridge cases, and comparisons with other firearms. The defense questions whether the ballistic evidence conclusively linked any accused to the shooting, the handling of the exhibit, and aspects of the forensic process. The state maintains that its forensic experts followed accepted procedures and that the evidence should be accepted alongside the broader body of evidence. However, there is something after the Madlanga Commission, there was that guy, what's his name? Likhet. Oh, I forgot his name. But he works with Mangena, and he was arrested for twisting things when it comes to firearm evidence and stuff. So when we find out Ukutabo Mangena's colleagues are possible of doing that, we can't trust anything that comes of them, especially something that does not make sense, because now Mangena said that firearm is linking, but Mangena forgot that that firearm was tested in 2015 and it never linked. They don't want to deal with that. And now when they are being asked for the printout of that firearm from 2015, I don't know if they have brought it so far inside the courtroom, because the person that arrested Mncube with the so-called firearm said, Masondo, that's his name, Masondo said, if Mncube was part of the murder of Senzo Meyiwa case, if the firearm was linked to the Senzo Meyiwa case, he would have known back in February, March 2015. Because Mncube was not, that firearm that he found from Mncube had nothing to do with that crime. That is why during 2015, Mncube was not charged for the Senzo Meyiwa case. So I don't know how Baloyi is going to navigate that one. I don't know how is he going to navigate that one. The other issue, DNA and fingerprints. Many members of the public expected DNA or fingerprint evidence to provide decisive answers. Instead, forensic evidence of this type has been subjected of debate, a subject of debate. Questions raised during the trial have included what DNA evidence was recovered, what fingerprints were identified, did any forensic evidence directly place an accused at the crime scene? The answer was no to all of that. The absence of clear forensic links has been highlighted by the defense as a weakness in the prosecution's case. The state argues that criminal cases can be proved through a combination of direct and circumstantial evidence, even where DNA evidence is limited or absent, which is unfair because there is that head, and that head, they claimed that it belonged to accused number 3, yet that head did not have a single DNA of accused number 3. And then there is witness statements. Another issue concerns with the witness statement. Different witnesses have given accounts that differ on various details, including movements, positioning, timing, and descriptions of events. I think let's do a different video for this because wow, what a wow. What are your thoughts when you think about everything that I already touched on this video? Because sana abobaloi aiko. Shem I geke. Son. It too much, it's a lot, if you ask me. Let's talk a comment section. I want to hear your views. I don't think they have any leg to stand on. They are just forcing the issue, but time will tell. Let's talk. Thank you. Bye-bye.